There's this huge economic shift happening in the Gulf right now. But, it's not happening where most people are looking. We're not talking about the usual stories of oil or massive state-led projects. Today, we're going to look at how the region's oldest family businesses are quietly turning into its newest and most powerful centers for innovation. It all kicks off with an absolutely staggering number. By 2030, more than $1 trillion in assets is going to be handed over to the next generation of leaders across the Gulf. But look, this isn't just about money moving from one account to another. It's a huge transfer of power, of influence, and of responsibility. And of course, a transfer that big raises a trillion-dollar question. What is this new generation actually going to do with all of it? How are they going to shape the future of these incredibly powerful family companies, and with them, the economy of the entire region? For a long time, the story seemed pretty simple. It felt like you had two choices. You could be the rebel founder, you know the type, strike out on your own, build the next big thing from the ground up, or you could be the loyal steward, stay inside the family business, and basically just protect its legacy. It was always framed as this classic showdown, ambition versus loyalty. But what if that choice is a false one? What if that whole way of thinking is just outdated? Because it is. That black and white view just isn't accurate anymore. There's a third path emerging, and it's way more powerful and interesting than the old story ever let on. And this is the new model. The next generation of leaders, they aren't leaving, but they're not just sitting around maintaining the status quo either. They're becoming what you might call intrapreneurs, using the incredible resources of their family businesses as a launchpad to build brand new companies from the inside. So, okay, how does this actually work in the real world? Let's get into some case studies and see exactly how this powerful new model is playing out across the Gulf. Our first stop is the Al Sulaiman Group, famous in Saudi Arabia for running IKEA. Now, by the mid-2010s, they had a massive headache. Delivering all that big, bulky furniture was a logistical nightmare, and the delivery companies they were using just couldn't handle it. So what they do, instead of just hunting for a better supplier, they built their own solution from scratch. They spun up an entirely new, separate company called Flow Progressive Logistics. And this is just a brilliant example of the model. Flow launched on day one with a guaranteed, massive anchor client, IKEA, which let it scale up and invest right away. And today, it's a huge logistics player serving the whole Saudi economy. All right, next up, the Chalhoub Group, a titan in luxury goods distribution. They saw the writing on the wall. Global brands were going digital, selling directly to consumers, and that was a direct threat to their traditional business. They knew they had a choice: innovate or risk becoming a relic. And their solution wasn't just a new product. It was a whole new process. They created something called the greenhouse, basically an in-house incubator. Any employee can pitch a startup idea, and this is key, failure is just seen as part of the learning curve. This is how ventures like MindMe, a wellness platform, got started. It was tested and tweaked with thousands of real employees before it ever went public. They didn't just find an idea. They figured out how to keep their most entrepreneurial minds inside the company. Okay, for our last case, let's look at the Kano Group in Bahrain. This is a true legacy institution. Over 100 years of history in super traditional industries like shipping and real estate. Not exactly a tech startup, right? This is the definition of old school. Well, it started really small. In 2020, the fifth-generation leaders suggested an experimental investment in digital assets. It was met with a lot of skepticism, as you can imagine, but they got a limited approval. And then it proved to be profitable. But it did more than just make money. It completely changed the company's mindset about risk and innovation. And that little experiment, it's now grown into a whole new company, ARP Digital, which actually advises other family offices on making that same leap. So these cases show us the what. Now let's dig into the why. What are the core principles that make this model so darn effective in the Gulf? The crucial thing to understand is this. Building from within basically creates a startup with superpowers. Think about it. You get a guaranteed first customer right out of the gate. You have these deep, long-standing relationships with regulators. You can tap into massive supply chains, and you have patient capital that isn't breathing down your neck for a quick exit. You're not building in a lab. You're testing your ideas in the real market from day one. These aren't just perks. They are incredible structural advantages. Now, this whole shift has some really profound implications that go way beyond just the families themselves. It's actually reshaping how we should be thinking about economic development for the whole region. So, what's the takeaway for the key players here? Well, if you're a policymaker, it means you need to create rules that support this kind of internal innovation. For the family offices, it's a wake-up call. You have to build formal pathways for these ideas to actually grow. And for the next-gen leaders themselves, the message is crystal clear. You do not have to choose between being ambitious and being loyal. You can build the future without walking away from the past. And that really brings us to the most important point of all. Innovation in the Gulf isn't about tearing down the old to build the new. It's about using the strength of tradition as the launchpad for radical change. It's a methodical, smart reworking of a legacy. So I'll just leave you with this thought. As we're all looking for that next wave of disruption, maybe we've been looking in the wrong places. Maybe the most important new companies won't come out of a garage, but from the boardroom of a 100-year-old family business.